They thought he'd stop at gold. They thought he feared code. They thought Africa's resistance would stay offline. They were wrong. In this chapter, Traoré doesn't just build a currency. He launches a weapon, a digital one. But with every new line of code, the system begins to glitch. Not from outside, but from inside. In the next 10 minutes, you'll witness the birth of AfriPay Digital, a data leak that shakes a continent, and a betrayal that no one saw coming. Subscribe now. This isn't just history. It's prophecy. Comment: can Africa protect its revolution from within? AfriPay was no longer a concept, it was real. First, it lived on paper, then on a private blockchain. And now, it pulsed across a closed-loop network connecting select merchants, border trade stations, and rural cooperatives. No intermediaries. No foreign validators. Just African value, recorded and verified in African hands. But what no one outside knew was this: the real AfriPay wasn't what the public used. It was what Traoré's task force had been building in silence: a ghost layer, a defense system, a trap. They called it Mwezi, the moon layer. Designed to be invisible, Mwezi mapped every attempt to hack, mirror, or manipulate the AfriPay system. And one night, it lit up. An intrusion ping from inside a regional office, not foreign, not anonymous, but logged in under a trusted admin ID. The system had been breached from within. Traoré's digital revolution wasn't just under attack. It was bleeding. Do you think the biggest threats to revolutions come from the outside or the inside? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This battle just changed. The breach wasn't from a rookie. It bypassed 3 layers of internal security and wrote false confirmations into AfriPay's ledger. Someone wanted to make it look unstable. To the public, everything seemed fine. But inside the war room, Traoré stared at one name on the access log, someone from his original team. Someone who had sat beside him when AfriPay was just a drawing on a whiteboard. "Trust is the most dangerous currency," he muttered. And in that moment, he didn't need generals. He needed ghosts, digital ones. He summoned the core coders, 4 men, 2 women, all under 30. Hackers turned patriots. "Don't delete the intruder," Traoré ordered. "Follow them." What they found wasn't just a spy. It was a pipeline, code that funneled metadata from AfriPay nodes to a third-party analytics firm, registered in Paris. The firm's name? Traitor, a think tank with a clean logo, polite website, and deep ties to France's Ministry of Finance. "They don't just want to break AfriPay," a coder said. "They want to study it, replicate it, own it. Would you open source a revolution or burn it before they steal it?" They called it a signal flood. Traoré didn't shut down Traitor, he overwhelmed it. Using Mwezi's shadow protocol, his team injected thousands of false data packets into the firm's servers. Artificial transaction spikes, phantom accounts, synthetic inflation. By morning, the firm's dashboard showed AfriPay had processed $3.2 billion overnight. French regulators panicked. News outlets scrambled, and Traoré tweeted just 3 words. "You want numbers?" Was this chaos or strategy? Comment below. Is information the new battlefield? While Paris tried to make sense of the numbers, Traoré addressed the nation. Not from a podium, but from a server room standing beside blinking machines. "We are not just exporting minerals," he said. "We are exporting the blueprint for financial independence." The stream was translated into 12 African languages. Within 48 hours, youth groups in Senegal, Mali, and Ghana were building mock AfriPay nodes using old phones and Raspberry Pis. It wasn't about scale. It was about symbolism. Like this video if you believe freedom spreads faster than fear. Share your favorite quote from his speech below. The retaliation came quietly. International credit agencies downgraded Burkina Faso overnight. High-risk investment zone, they called it. Western fintech firms halted operations. Importers received cancellation emails. Currency reserves in overseas banks were mysteriously under review. But Traoré didn't panic. He smiled during a cabinet briefing. "Let them leave," he said. "If the price of sovereignty is bad credit from our colonizers, I'll pay it twice." Instead of begging investors to stay, Traoré turned inward. He launched the People's Dividend Program to 5% of all AfriPay transaction fees were redistributed monthly to verified rural users. Farmers began receiving funds straight to their phones. Shopkeepers started accepting payments without even owning bank accounts. The GDP didn't grow, but loyalty did. "We can't control their money," Traoré said, "but we can make them irrelevant." And in a village where electricity came from a solar panel, a grandmother paid for school books, using a system France couldn't touch. It started with a meeting request. 7 former finance ministers, 3 governors, 2 CEOs, all African, all French educated. They proposed a stabilization council to oversee AfriPay. Traoré declined. 2 days later, rumors began. The system is unstable. Inflation is rising. Traoré is centralizing power. No one claimed responsibility, but the signs were clear. A soft coup, masked in policy talk, built on ego, sold as moderation. Instead of purging them, Traoré invited them. A live debate. Cameras rolling. One table, no titles. "Let the people hear you," he said. "Tell them why their freedom needs your supervision." The opposition stammered. One minister mentioned international trust. Another cited complexity. Traoré replied with a single sentence. "You don't trust the people because you were never elected by them." That clip was viewed 14 million times in 72 hours. Trust wasn't just shifting. It was shattering. The turning point came from Niger. A border town began accepting AfriPay for cross-border cattle trade. Then came Mali. A cooperative of cotton farmers switched their ledger to AfriPay's public blockchain. Guinea followed next, unofficially. No central vote. No signed treaty. Just nodes, phones, and the will to stop asking permission. Within weeks, AfriPay traffic increased by 44%. "We didn't need a summit," Traoré said. "We needed signal." Meanwhile, French advisors arrived in Dakar. They offered Senegal a new tech initiative, satellites, AI labs, digital infrastructure. The price? Silence on AfriPay. In private memos later leaked, the phrase appeared 4 times. Contain the narrative. But the narrative was already out. And in a cafe in Accra, a Ghanaian developer launched a browser plugin that auto-converted CFA prices into AfriPay equivalents. It wasn't perfect, but it was fast. Then came the outage, not just power, access. AfriPay nodes in certain regions started going dark. DNS records vanished. Traffic rerouted. Coincidence, Western telecom firms claimed. Maintenance. But Traoré's tech team traced the disruption back to an undersea cable operator minus 47% owned by a French infrastructure fund. "They think the internet is theirs," a coder said. Traoré didn't flinch. He launched Project Sarah, a mesh network linking rural villages via solar repeaters and encrypted low-frequency channels. AfriPay came back online without asking. When AfriPay blinked back to life, something unexpected happened. It didn't just recover, it multiplied. Developers in Kenya cloned the Sarah blueprint and launched their own node clusters. Diaspora engineers in London and Toronto offered remote support. Within 10 days, AfriPay's mesh network spanned 7 nations, unofficially. This isn't infrastructure, Traoré said. It's immune response. This isn't about money anymore, Traoré said in a recorded address. It's about memory, about refusing to forget who built the chains and who still polishes them. The message aired not just on national TV, but via SMS, shortwave radio, and public projectors across 300 villages. And at the bottom of each transmission, 3 words blinked. No permission needed. The slogan became graffiti. It became T-shirts. It became chant. But just as the movement reached its loudest echo, something silent struck back. Inside Traoré's own digital circle. A second breach. He didn't arrest him. He didn't silence the news. Instead, Traoré did something no one expected. He logged into a live stream. 1 camera. No filters. No edits. One of our own tested the system, he said. Not to destroy it, but to prove it's resilient. A half-truth? Maybe. A political shield? Absolutely. But it worked. The breach became a stress test. The betrayal became a lesson. The movement didn't fracture. It evolved. The AfriPay code was immediately forked. A new version launched, AfriPay root, with decentralized validator access and community review baked into its DNA. Within 72 hours, over 40,000 users migrated voluntarily. The betrayal hadn't weakened the movement, it had decentralized it. Traoré watched the dashboard numbers roll in. One aide asked, "What should we call this new phase?" He replied without blinking, "Replanting the fire." And that's when a message flashed across secure channels. "They're preparing sanctions." Traoré looked up and said, "Then part 4 begins." They tried to shut it down. They tried to hijack it. They even tried to corrupt it from within. But AfriPay didn't collapse. It fractured, then multiplied. Because true independence isn't about perfect systems. It's about imperfect people refusing to be controlled. One line of code became a movement. One movement became a mirror. And now, as global institutions prepare their sanctions, the world is watching, not to see if Traoré wins, but to see if Africa will blink. Subscribe now for Part 4, The Sanction Trap, where pressure gets weaponized and silence becomes resistance. Comment below. What would you risk to defend something you built with truth?